Good afternoon. The Standing Committee for Public Safety is called to order today on Monday, February the 7th, 2022 at 4:06 p.m. At this time, we'll have the roll call. Alderman Dewan Gay.
Here.
It's opening to.
Alderwoman Karma O'Neill.
Here.
At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make that motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
Just a second. Thank you so much. All in favor say aye.
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 No opposed. We'll move on to number 1, business and miscellaneous. Approval of minutes. PSC 012422. Approval of minutes for the special meeting. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Can I hear a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I don't hear any opposition. Thank you. Approval of minutes have been approved. Next, we'll move on to committee presentations. ID 1522, Police Department presentation, Police Chief Edward Jackson. And before we move on, a couple of little housekeeping items. Want to recognize the National Burn Awareness Week this week. I'm not going to get into any particulars, but if Ms. Green could add that to the minutes, that we did recognize that. We have 2 hours. Normally we have an hour and a half, but since we have some extended presentations, we'll follow basically the format that we had the last time for the fire department. We will have the presentation by the police department. Then we will entertain questions, first by Alderman Gay, then by Alderwoman O'Neill, and then from Alderwoman Finlayson. We welcome her this evening for any comments or questions as well. Any questions before we get started?
Madam Chair, can I interrupt real quick?
Yes, sir.
This is a message for Julian, if he can hear me. I have Captain Kleindus that's on. He having the same problem that I had. If he can send him the join in link, he can see us and hear us, but we can't see or hear him. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you. If we have any difficulties along the way, please note them so we can take care of them right away. All right, Chief Jackson, we can get started.
Okay, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, or good evening, I should say. It's 4:08 p.m. I think the way that we'll do our presentation, I'll give kind of like opening remarks and then kind of an overview of where we're at as a police department, a state of the Annapolis Police Department, if you will. And then I'll have my deputy chief to talk about a few things. And then I'd like for you to hear from the individual commanders that have responsibility for overseeing certain aspects of the department, certain divisions and sections in the department. And I think it'll flow that way because they know better at what they do. And anything I may forget, then they can articulate that. And so I'd like to start off first saying thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it and still remain, it's still an honor for me to be the chief of police in the Annapolis Police Department. In the 2.5 years that I've been chief, I think that the department's come a long way in realizing my commitment, as I promised on confirmation, that we would implement a community policing model that would address all aspects of Annapolis city life. You know, it would address the social problems that breeds crime in the first place, such as mental illness, drug addiction, alcohol dependency, you know, broken families, hopelessness, poverty, as a police department. And as a part of community policing and my crime prevention strategy, we will have the type of outreach services coming out of the APD, like our reentry program and all that encompasses. to address the needs of the citizens so that people can have an incentive and a reason to want to be in compliance with the culture that we would want in our city, and to be in compliance with the law. So I'll start off by saying that, first of all, we reorganized. I asked Deputy Chief Branford and Justin Klein this a couple of months ago to start kicking around some ideas to reorganize the police department, and so that it can operate more effectively and efficiently. And for example, our efficacy or our efficiency lies in our ability to make the best utilization of the resources that we do have. We always want more, but I never want to use our lack of resources as an excuse not to honor our commitment to provide the best public safety that we can provide for our citizens. So I'll let them talk about that later on. I think one of the things that I'm most excited about are the partnerships that I've been able to forge with the feds. And the response to those partnerships from the men and women who serve in the Annapolis Police Department. Many of you know, and in short order, we'll be talking about that more in depth. We've had mass raids in the city of Annapolis to address some of the concerns, the opioid overdose crisis, and some of the poison that's been fed into the city that affects our young people and our children. The federal government agreed with the Annapolis PD to target, if you will, those individuals responsible for breaking both state and federal law in terms of bringing in firearms, illegal firearms, and this poison, this opioids and heroin and cocaine and all these other illicit drugs that pretty much is pervasive everywhere, but it's more pronounced in our underserved communities, Harbor House, Robinwood, and places like that where people have challenges. And so I'm happy to say that we've done some things to address that, and I'll talk about that at some other forum. They were federal warrants. They led the charge, but surely it was based on information that we were able to give them to help give our residents, or the residents of the city of Annapolis who complained about the violence and the drugs, some relief from that. And then I had a conversation just this morning with a supervisory FBI agent in charge, and we're going to embark on some future initiatives to address the violence, especially the homicides, and to prevent as many as we can, working with not only the feds, but to try to foster a real meaningful partnership with Anne Arundel County Police, because as you know that, many events that's occurred here, unfortunate incidents that's occurred here with the absence of Michelle Cummings, who so tragically lost her life last June 29th. Most of them have been disputes that's gone between the city and the county. And so if we're ever going to provide the best public service, safety, and service, we have to make sure that we're talking to our neighboring jurisdictions, PG County and the like, to make sure that we can disrupt and dismantle many potential threats as we can. I'll digress for just a second. I'm very proud of the new command staff, and I think I should announce it. Since we've last gotten together formally, we've promoted Amy Miguez to captain, and we're very proud of Amy. She's very articulate, very smart. Of course, many of you know her from her days. Even when I first got here, she did our public information. She was our PIO and our community outreach person. But I think she's going to make a terrific captain, command staff member. She's a welcome addition, along with Captain Justin Klondis. And one of these days we'll have a public ceremony, because I should say, as a sidebar, both have been promoted twice. And we haven't given them their first certificate yet of promotion, and they both have been brought on as a part of the command staff. So I'm real proud of both, and they both hit the ground running, and I think they're going to be terrific leaders. And my prayer is that out of this experience, they can become chiefs anywhere. So we're preparing them to be chiefs in the city of Annapolis or anywhere else that they choose to be. But I think good leaders develop leaders around them. You know, if you want to talk about a good leader, then leaders should emerge from their leadership. And I know that both Captain Miguez and Captain Kleindes are going to do a terrific job. They've already started. In short order, I've been asking every day, and we are trying to work the kinks out, but we're going to have a new organizational chart Captain Kleindes will talk about that later on, but we're going to have a new organizational chart on our webpage so that the public will see the new changes that we made. But that's not before you all will see it. Madam Chair, you'll see it first, and the mayor will see it, and everybody in this body. And then once you all seen it, then we'll make it public after you all have had the opportunity to inspect it and look at it and offer suggestions. Then we'll put it on our website and make it public. So I'm excited about that too. We've had several new hires, and I guess Dave, the other Miguez, I said today we have to promote him to captain, so we'll have two captain Miguezes. Miguezes on the department, but he can talk about some of our new hires. We're trying to close that gap with vacancies, and we've had a couple of new hires, a couple of lateral transfers, and he'll talk about that later on. Of course, the most terrific, Rhonda McCoy, will talk about this new legislation. I call it an albatross around my neck, but it's legislation that we have to comply with. And I said that to make everybody laugh. I noticed nobody laughed, but she's very well versed. She and Kerry Berger have really studied that legislation and really been a blessing to the Annapolis Police Department to help us be in the capital city. We are light years ahead of everybody else. Most people are just trying to scratch in their head. And Rhonda's already been working with diligently with Anne Arundel County. County Executive Stuart Pittman's office to make sure that the accountability boards and all of that kind of stuff, this new legislation requires that we are represented. And not only are we represented, but they're dependent on Rhonda to help. So she'll talk about that. And then, as you well know, we have a new initiative that was the brainstorm of Stan and I sat and talked about that. That was our brainstorm. We do some of our best thinking on 97, Interstate 97, both north and southbound. And Stan talked to me. I don't know, Stan, how long ago was it? 6 months ago, about creating this forum where we bring our stakeholders in, i.e. the Caucus of African American Leaders, the NAACP, and kind of demystify the department. We bring them in, and we've been operating out of the OEM, the Office of Emergency Management, Chief Simmons' shop, and we put a big PowerPoint presentation up, and we discuss everything from our crime. We talk about the various units in the department, and I think that's important that the citizens understand our challenges and know how the department really works. And so we've tried to put on a very professional. Our last one was the East Port Civic Association. We brought them in, and we spent a couple of hours with them. I think Alderwoman Pendell Charles, you were there that night when we brought them in, and that was also live streamed. And we talked about everything from our crime, and we talked about our new system. We've gone from a uniform crime report system to a more efficient system called NIBRS. And NIBRS is an acronym for National Incident-Based Reporting System. And I just think that it collates and collects crime data in a more efficient way. And so we've been a big part of our year in review. 2021 was a good year in that sense. We started in the fall bringing in the Caucus of African American Leaders, convener Carl Snowden and his staff, and the NAACP. And I think, not to put words in your mouth, Alderman Pendell Charles, but I think you taxed them to grade us, and they graded us an A. And I'm still very, very proud of that. Because Carl don't give away A's from the police department easy. So that's historic in and of itself. And so I'm still very proud of that. And I can thank the chairwoman, Alderwoman Pendel Charles, because she forced them to give us a grade on our presentation. And so we're going to do more of those in 2022. We're going to bring them in every couple of months. I don't know, what do we decide, quarterly or something like that? We're going to bring them in every couple of months and to update them on everything that we're doing and to address any concerns that they may have. So I'm almost ready to wrap up, but we're going to have some initiatives with the Federal Drug Enforcement Administration, with the FBI. Like I said, I had a delightful conversation this morning with the FBI, and they want to partner with us and work together with Captain Miguez's shop to make sure that we address many of the crime issues. I still believe that although the city of Annapolis is a small jurisdiction, it's in a very important region of this country. It's the closest capital city to the United States Capitol. It's the home of the United States Naval Academy. And so we have a federal presence here. It's where our state legislature is. It's the capital city. Maryland's highest court is housed here. So we have a lot of assets here that we have to protect. And symbolically, we don't want our city to morph into those type cities that have challenges, you know. I'm not going to mention any cities, but if I was to mention cities, I would say Baltimore, but I'm not going to mention any cities. But if I was, we don't want to have 36 murders in a month. So we're going to do our very best to ensure both the elected officials and our residents and community organizations that we're going to do everything within our power to make sure that we provide the best public safety in the city of Annapolis, and hopefully we'll be the model for neighboring jurisdictions who want to emulate some of the stuff that we're doing. So I think I'm gonna stop right there. That's the opening. I addressed our partnerships, our new diversity, our new command staff, new hires, community policing, new organization, and then kind of like a year in review. And the last thing I'll say, we had 5 homicides last year and all 5 were charged. And so I'll be issuing unit citations. Well, really, Captain Klein will be issuing unit citations to show how much we appreciate the hard work of the detectives to make sure that for every homicide that was committed, we may not have been able to prevent it, but we were able to charge the persons responsible for each and every one. And that's very rare to have a 100% clearance rate. So in baseball, we batted 1,000 when it comes to the administration of justice for one of the most serious crimes you can commit. So I'm gonna stop there, and then I'll turn it over to Deputy Chief Stan Branford.
Thank you, Chief. Well, good afternoon.
Deputy Branford, I want to pause for 1 second. Thank you so much, Chief, for that overall a series of information that you provided us. Just want to welcome Alderwoman Tierney and Alderman Arnett to our meeting this evening. If we have some additional time at the end, I've offered Alderwoman Finlayson the opportunity to ask questions or make comments, but if we have any additional moments at the end, then Alderwoman Tierney and Alderman Arnett can certainly ask questions as well. Just want one indication, when the NAACP and the caucus gave their A grade, it was done independently. Mr. Snowden gave it on the day that it was presented. A couple of days later, I contacted Ms. Alsop, the president, and she gave the same grade. So they didn't get together to give it. It was done independently. So thank you all so very much. Deputy Chief Branford, thank you.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon to all of our elected officials and then our assistant city attorney. Good afternoon. Just to reemphasize a couple points the chief. So absolutely, we met with those group, and Alderwoman Pendel Charles, got to give you a little credit, because last year when we first started those intel meetings, it was in a conversation with you that you remember we used to do those in Baltimore, and you wanted to know how we can build the same thing here. And within a few short weeks, we did build that model, and I think it worked very well. The first group we did entertain in that setting was the NAACP and the caucus, and we're looking to continue that. We've been in conversation with them. We made a commitment to do this for them quarterly. We also made a commitment that we will do any community organization who wants to have that presentation. That would be the preferred method to do so. So if any of your community leaders in the future want to do that, we'll make arrangement and get that done. However, right now, I don't think we're able to put anybody in that fusion center right now due to COVID, but hopefully sometime after March, we'll be able to get that going again. But the biggest thing is transparency. So I know the chief talked about community engagement. We're going to continue to build that. We're going to continue to build that transparency piece. One of the things I think you forgot to mention, Chief, is that we're in the process, and Chief just interviewed persons for our PIO position. I've always been a proponent of having a civilian for a PIO. I know our police officer, Amy Miguez, she did it at one point in time, but we need to expand that a little more and take it to a different level that we have not had it before. I think a PIO would be good in promoting the agency. And we're also looking to do some innovative things to have that particular PIO do some relationship building into the community. So I think you'll see a vigorous PIO program once we get that person on board. We're going to continue to do those meetings as we see necessary as those requests coming in. I think we had a successful year last year, and you'll hear that from some of the other commanders. Some of the things we tried to take a look at, and we try to keep our ear to the national trends that are going on within the country. Last year, we were successful on getting ahead of a couple things. One was this flash mob last year. You saw that the national trend was flash mobs going around the country. We made sure that we connected with our business leaders, put out information, and made sure that we didn't have that trend here in Annapolis. ATM thefts. I think Captain Klein has instructed all his guys to map out and talk to every owner who had an ATM and advise them on how to secure their businesses and relocate the ATM. So I think we were successful with that. So we're going to continue to build and take proactive steps in getting our relationship with the community and provide you all with the best information as possible, as quick as possible. And I know the chief talked about the 5 homicides that we had, and they were all closed. We had 1 so far this year. Our goal is, yeah, we can solve them, but we're going to see if we can get just as good as preventing them. And we're not going to be able to do that without the community help. So hopefully we can continue to build that trust and to ensure that we have those connections that we need to try to get ahead of some of these things. And Amy McGaz to talk about some of the things that she's doing. So with Captain Kleindis. But I think that's all I have. And I will chime in later because I think with solving some of these things in community engagement, I have a report here. I will give you some numbers in reference to our reentry program, which was a huge success, I think, in connecting with the community. And I'll give you some of those numbers. And I think you would be impressed with some of the work that our reentry has been doing. So with that, I think I'm gonna turn it over to Acting Captain Miguez to start us off with some information in reference to the agency and numbers and all. Thank you.
Okay, good evening. So currently we are at 106 officers out of 124 positions. We attended 5 recruitment events last year, but there were a lot that were put off at the beginning and towards the middle of the year. They picked up towards the end. We have a few recruiting events that we're planning on attending over the next couple of months. We're currently processing new hire applicants and lateral applicants, and we're looking at hopefully being up to about 117 by the end of March. So, and we'll continue that recruiting and hiring push as we get into fiscal year 23 as well.
Dave, can I jump in for a second?
Yes, sir.
So in reference to that, at the end of last year, we all had a meeting and we put a challenge out to Acting Captain Miguez, and we talked about recruitment. And I know we always talk about the numbers and where we should be, but we put out a goal and Dave responded very well. And our goal was to try to be fully staffed and fill every position by the end of this year. And him and his guys off to a great start. I would love to get up to that 124 or so. I think that would be great for our deployment. It'd be great for the city. We're going into contract negotiations, and hopefully our unions can hear something there that will keep our guys from leaving. Look like some of our people leaving has slowed down a little bit. Look like we kind of overtaken the hires more so than people leaving. So I think it was a good goal. And Dave, I want to congratulate you on to a great start.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're looking at continuing with that and filling up those vacancies that we have, not only on the sworn side, but the civilian side as well. You've probably seen the VMS signs, the message boards that we have out. We're trying to fill our dispatch vacancies. We have 4 vacancies out of 12, and so we're looking to fill those as well. As both the chief and Major Branford mentioned, we're we're just waiting on the chief for his decision on the PIO. And then we have some other civilian positions that we're looking to fill. And then we've been submitting the budget currently for next year. Some of the kind of the highlights from last year's, from from this year, from FY22 to FY23, some of our expenses, obviously some have gone down, some have gone up. Some of the larger ones, a couple are the Axon contract, which covers our body-worn cameras, our tasers. It covers all the video storage for all of that body-worn camera footage. And so we finished up one contract. This year was supposed to be the last year of that one. We renegotiated with Axon to get in on a lower price this current year. And so we started a new contract with them. And we have some additional features in the new contract with newer equipment as well for training. I think we had mentioned that during some of the meetings we had last year. We have, with Axon, we're getting some additional programs within that contract. For example, one of them is for redaction capabilities within the program so that we can pay less to private vendors for completing some of the redaction work that we have to when there are requests for video. And so we're looking forward to being able to get that done in-house and not pay as much to private vendors and try to save some money on that front. Some of the state legislation is going to involve some increase in expenses, physical ability tests and bias testing that's required under state legislation. And so we're working with HR to try and sort out vendors for those components, which are going to come into effect on July 1st, and sort that out. But that's going to be some of the increase in our budget, and our proposed budget for FY23 is bigger than our current budget for FY22. But that's the reason for some of the increases there. And aside from that, for the most part, the other larger components in our budget are software and technology programs and hardware and software that's just par for the course for law enforcement and investigations in this day and age. We have requirements for access to a lot of different databases that allow our detectives to do the best investigations that they can. And so that's what comprises a lot of the bigger ticket items in our budget, from our operating budget, not including our salaries and benefits. So, and there's also going to be some increase in training with the state legislation that we're trying to, again, seek vendors for training. And I'd say that's pretty much it. And those are the larger concerns from my perspective on the admin side, are our staffing and then our budget. So unless there's any questions, that's all that I have.
We're going to hold the questions, Captain, until the end. But one thing, I'm going to let the cat out the bag here. Alderwoman Tierney and I had a recent conversation along with Senator Elworth and concerning some legislation that Alderwoman Tierney is working on the state side. And what we had come up with a suggestion is that each alderperson attempt to recruit one person from their ward to join the Annapolis Police Department. And so that's what we're going to be working on. We hadn't told everyone yet, but this is a good opportunity to do that. And also Senator Elworth said from their angle, they're going to try to do the same thing on our behalf as well. So I'd mentioned it to the chief a couple of weeks ago when we met. And so just to let you all know, everybody's put on notice now, look for someone in your ward to see who may want to join the police department. Deputy Chief Branford has already met with someone from Ward 3. I haven't asked him for an update on that, but we can talk about that offline. But thank you all so very much.
And she is processing very well. So,
thank you.
And just one quick thing. So Captain Miguez, I know in the past, I think we didn't use all of our training dollars. I think this is to mention that we have been using our training dollars. We have the men and women of this age, including our civilians, they're getting plenty of training, significant training that's going to enhance their ability to service the community. So I'm proud of that. Also, Captain Miguez. And just want to mention that today is Captain Miguez's birthday. So happy birthday again.
Thanks so much. I'll be sure to return that favor when yours comes around, Major.
Yes, sir.
Alderwoman,
and thank you for joining us on your birthday.
Alderwoman Pindell Charles, I'm really glad to hear that. That does remind me, I should also mention that some of our expenses also are going towards, and the challenges that we have are competing with area agencies for a smaller number of applicants for law enforcement and public safety in general. I know the fire department's going through the same thing. We currently have a $1,000 signing bonus for new hires for police officer positions. But we do face challenges with other area agencies with our starting salary. And so that's something that we're trying to address creatively with the grant money that we currently have and that we're hoping to put in for fiscal year 23, trying to attract applicants to Annapolis. But certainly starting at home is a really good way to start. So we appreciate that challenge you have put out there.
Thank you.
With that, we're gonna go to Chief of Patrol, Captain Kleindes.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, everybody. It's only 4:30. It's probably already dark outside. So good evening, everyone. Just real quick, just a brief overview of where we are in patrol as it stands today on, February the 7th. So we ended last year at the end of 2021, approximately 6 officers short in patrol. So when the chief and the major and I sat down and we talked about reorganization, and we pulled then Lieutenant Miguez, or yes, Lieutenant Amy Miguez into the groupthink there on how can we restructure at least the patrol side to fully staff patrol to deal with some of the deficit and some of the order ins that we had to do by ordering people into work in addition to their normal work week, ordering them in on their days off due to those deficits. So we looked at some of our ancillary devices that we had, or our ancillary units that we had, and we wanted to pull from some of those units without having a large negative impact on service that we provide. So when we looked at the agency as a whole and where we could pull people from, effective January 6th, I'm happy to tell you that we are now staffed with 39 versus 34. So we added an additional 5 officers to where fully staffed would be at 40. So we're just 1 shy. And that should be rectified by the end of March. We have 2 young ladies that are doing very well in their field training program. One actually successfully completed it last night, was the last night of hers. So she should be a solo officer here effective Wednesday, should be her first day on her own. And so that'll actually bring us up to the 40 when the next young lady gets off, which will be the end of March. So with Acting Captain Miguez's efforts with recruiting, the plan is to, as we hire more and they successfully complete field training, we can then start backfilling or refilling where we've pulled from other units and get that back up and running as a complete full service with all of our units fully staffed. So when we went about this and we were thinking about this, it's, again, what had the least negative impact on the service that we provided to the citizens, and our biggest deficit was in just the general patrol setting. And when we're ordering people in, after already working their 44-hour work week, and now they got to work an additional 12 hours or 24 hours on top of that, in additional shifts, that has to, at some point, negatively impact the service that they are then providing. They're going to be tired, exhausted. They've got to now work, 2 additional days in their work week. And, people are human and they're going to be tired. So we want to try and mitigate that as much as we could. So we went about the restructuring, and I'm happy to say, as of January 6th, we have not had to order anybody to backfill any patrol shifts in the last month and a week at this point. And we look to be on track to continue that trend moving forward. I don't see any large deficits coming up in our staffing. There's staffing shortages that are projected out that are critical staffing shortages that have to be backfilled by ordering people to work. So that's one good news on that end. In an effort as well as to provide the best service, we've been in contact, myself, the deputy chief, and Chief Jackson have been in contact with Chief Wilson from the Department of General Services, Maryland National Capital Police, and along with Chief Wilson and Secretary Churchill, we've entered into the beginning stages of redrafting an older MOU that we have with them in order to get assistance from some of their law enforcement presence in some of our neighborhoods with higher crime rates as hopefully a visual deterrent to allow us to kind of force multiply and allow more eyes in those neighborhoods to basically help reaffirm to the residents that, we are there, our neighbors, that they come and go through their travels throughout the city and they see all these other law enforcement agencies. I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, how are we working with them? Are we working together with our allied agencies? And this is just one example of how we've entered into a new updated agreement to try and get some assistance from our allied agencies that reside in the city of Annapolis as well. And the whole purpose behind that is exactly that, just a force multiplier, that we have more eyes on the road, more people that can hopefully affect the reduction of crime, or at least the deterrence of crime. We know that we can't always prevent it, but at least if we can deter it and maybe push it down for the time being and eventually get rid of it altogether would be the ultimate goal, then the more the merrier. We're willing to have their assistance as well. Just another brief picture of last year at year end. The department handled approximately 29,116 calls for service as an agency for the year of 2021. That broken down, the average officer is going to respond to about 1,400 calls a year. And that's in the primary capacity as the officer responsible for handling the call for service and as a backup officer. So they're handling almost 700 individually. and about 1,400 total for the year. So we're asking a lot of our officers, and they're providing relatively good service, even when they're tired. I think they're still stepping up to the plate and coming in and ensuring that the safety of the Annapolis citizens and residents is paramount. And I think that demonstrates itself in a lot of different ways. One of the most telling ways for me as the patrol captain is when I'm looking at our calls for service and what are our typical, the numbers for calls for service. So when I pulled our top 10 most frequent calls for service, not a single one of them involves any type of violent crime. So the majority of the calls for service that we're handling are frequent checks, alarm calls, disturbances or keep the peace, which typically is people being loud in the streets or some type of disturbance. It's not necessarily, it doesn't go down as an assault. It just goes down as a disturbance. Traffic stops, traffic accidents, check the welfares, loud noise, parking complaints, assisting citizens and assisting the fire department are our top 10 most frequent calls for service. And I think we as an agency certainly take a lot of pride in that, you know, we don't have violent crimes in our top 10 calls for service for the year, which tells me that we're doing a good job deterring and suppressing a lot of it. Yes, you know, we've had 5 unfortunate events in the last 3 months where we've lost, you know, precious lives, people that have families, that have loved ones that had to say goodbye to their loved one. But luckily that's not the norm, you know, and I think that speaks to the work that the men and women of this agency are doing. To the chief's point of the organizational chart, that is still a work in progress as things kind of get flowed out, and some units are being restructured in different divisions than they previously were located. Once that is finalized and hammered out, we will absolutely get that out to everybody so that everyone and the citizens of Annapolis know pretty much who reports to who and who's in charge of what division, and they know that these are the people that we can contact with any issues. Moving forward, some of the training that we would like, or I would like to have our supervision attend is more leadership training for our first line supervisors, our corporals and our sergeants, those that are in charge, directly in charge of the men and women on each of the platoons that are patrolling every night. And for my 2 lieutenants, some more command level leadership training, so that what we're trying to do is not get you into the position and hope it works out for you. We're trying to build you before you take that next step. Like the chief said, you know, the leadership has to start, you know, at the next level, preparing you for that job. So I'm trying to get that instilled through my junior staff that, you know, we're preparing them. We're getting ready to enter, or we've actually started the process for promotional process for 2022, getting that together. And you know, it's important that we start now with those individuals that are going to be advancing in their careers and taking the next steps, that we're preparing them ahead of time and making them, you know, building that foundation. So we're not trying to play catch up after we promote them. We want to get that ahead of time so that we can put them in those positions and hit the ground running. They're familiar with what they need to do and they understand what it takes to be a leader, and just give them a better opportunity for success and not just a hope and see. As far as one of the things we've talking about community outreach to a degree, we just actually had a meeting with 2 very nice ladies down at Bay Ridge Gardens. There's a new property manager. We just met with her the other day, and she expressed some concerns with the communities that we have rectified in the immediacy. And hopefully we're entering in with them to a longer term plan to try and alleviate some of the problems that they've been seeing. We've actually had a very, very good open dialogue with them. And it was nice for them to actually reach out to us and say that, hey, we've got new staff on board. We'd like you to meet them. And we want to share our vision and see how they align with your vision of what this neighborhood should be. So I think we've actually struck a very good partnership with Bay Ridge Gardens, and we're looking forward to making some changes in that neighborhood for the better.
Thank you so much, Captain Kleindis. One thing I want to mention, I currently belong to a county organization called Interfaith Advisory Council. which is a group of ecumenical leaders. This is something that the county executive put together, and I've had very, very preliminary conversations with our chief and deputy chief as far as possibly expanding our chaplain pool, because that's extremely important. We do recognize that, as Captain Kleindienst indicates, oftentimes our officers are tired, they're working long hours, and sometimes no matter what the issue or issues may be, they need some sort of support. And I think that goes for everyone. And so we've had very preliminary conversations about expanding the chaplain pool as well. And as you all know, we had the Faith in Blue event last year, which went extremely well, which we plan probably to do yearly. But thank you so much again.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And I want to give a shout out before the next person along those lines, Madam Chair, and that's Reverend Jerry Colbert, who headed the Faith in Blue, who's really been a blessing. And also Bishop Craig Coates is somebody else. You can count on them for any type of support that we need. And that's how a city remains stable. When faith, education, and the family are not relevant, then you're going to have police, courts, and corrections trying to regulate behavior. We would want family, faith, and our educational system to be predominant in individuals' lives and in their communities, so that you can have less enforcement in those communities. So I just wanted to seize that opportunity to thank particularly Bishop Coates and as many others, Bishop Carroll and Bishop Coates, Bishop Carroll, and Reverend Colbert. Those are stalwarts, and they'll do anything that we need them to ask. And you're right, we need to expand it. I'd love to see us engage a rabbi, because of course the times that we're living in, as everybody on this call knows that we've had some literature being passed around, anti-Semitic literature around the country. So we need to reach out to our Jewish partners, and also our Islamic partners too. And we do have imams here that represents the Islamic faith in the city of Annapolis. So that's my vision too, Madam Chair, is to have all of us sit at the table over a cup of coffee or whatever, and sit down and talk about some of the things that we can do to further enhance public safety in the city of Annapolis.
Thank you, Chief, and hats off again to our Triple C team, Colbert, Coates, and Carroll. Thank you.
Just one quick thing in reference to Captain Kleindienst. One of the main focus, although it was public safety and officer safety, when he went to this revamping of a patrol, this also was a cost saving for us also. We were spending a tremendous amount of money in overtime by calling people in. So I think we save the city some money on cutting down on some of those overtime costs also. So with that, I'm going to go to our Chief of Detectives, Captain Amy McGiz.
Okay, I'm going to try and share a slide presentation. So bear with me for a moment. Okay, can everyone see that? Okay, great. So thank you for having me at this meeting, but I'm new in my position, obviously. It's been just a month now. I'm in charge of the operations division. It's acting Captain McDonald retired in December, and I took over from him, and we also moved Lieutenant Krause in to be in charge of the detectives under me, which he has done before, which is a great benefit for me in this position to learn from someone who has experience. So operations includes criminal investigations, which is investigations, the detectives, forensic services, and our crime analysis. We also have the drug enforcement unit, which includes the intelligence unit, which also does investigative support. Our operations, our neighborhood enhancement team was moved under here as well, and officers that are assigned to different task force. The chief mentioned partnerships with federal agencies. Task force officers are very vital to that, those partnerships. So in 2021, 9 detectives were assigned to our criminal investigations. They had 387 cases assigned to them to investigate. They also, during the investigation of those cases, obtained 148 search warrants. So they were very busy. As has been mentioned before, unfortunately, we had 5 homicides in 2021. We did make arrests in each of them. They are all still pending trial. Some have dates scheduled and some are still awaiting dates. So 5 tragedies in Annapolis, and our detectives worked incredibly hard to make closures in these. So we're hoping, that still have trials left to go, and it's a lot of work each case. So they did a great job last year. Just a little bit about our drug enforcement unit. So a lot of times people might picture kingpin cases where you have huge drug dealers moving, kilos of coke. A lot of our complaints that we receive are from neighborhoods. These are nuisance drug complaints. They're not the biggest dealers, but they are making a big impact on their community and their neighbors. These cases do get investigated. We do what we can to make cases so that we can find out what's going on. If there is dealing going on, then the investigation continues, and then we make arrests. So they're not, newsworthy necessarily, but they do make a big impact on the communities. So we do focus on areas where we get a lot of complaints, and we also focus on areas where we get a lot of violent crime. The unit also does alcohol and tobacco compliance checks, which are also important. A notable case we had in June of last year, it's an example of how our task force officers make connections and bring federal resources in to make a big difference in the city. So we had 2 people arrested in a drug trafficking ring, and they were distributing heroin, cocaine, crack cocaine, fentanyl in a period of almost 2 years in Anne Arundel County and Annapolis. 4 federal search and seizure warrants were executed. In those warrants, they seized 8 firearms, including 2 assault rifles. They seized lots of drugs, over $149,000 of US currency. They also seized a vehicle, and when they did a search of that vehicle, they discovered 11 kilograms of fentanyl and 270 grams of heroin. Of all the drugs that were seized, they're worth about $1.7 million. And again, this was a coordinated effort with DEA, FBI Annapolis, ourselves, the county police, and the Maryland State Police. So it's with partnerships like this that we can use those resources to our fullest advantage to increase the safety in Annapolis. Of course, we also had some activity in January with federal warrants. And like the chief said, we're not ready to give information about that, but I believe the FBI will be putting out information soon about that investigation. Like I said, partnerships.
Amy,
so we have.
Amy, can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yeah, go for it.
Can you go back to your other slide? So people have a good perspective of this. 1 kilogram of fentanyl, according to the DEA, can kill about 500,000 people. That's 1 kilogram. And we took 11 off the street due to our partnerships. And I think people just need to have a number that they can actually represent. It's hard to fathom 500,000 people, but when you think about that and do the math, it's untold how many lives were saved due to that collaboration.
Yeah, it was an incredible amount to have seized, and just a really good work by all the officers involved. So the partnerships, we have task force officers with the FBI, with HIDA, U.S. Marshal Service, and then we have obviously received grants and other resources from the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth and Victim Services, and those are invaluable to our efforts to combat crime in Annapolis. Also important to our successes, so things that we have now that really helped with our investigations this year, training. So training, we mentioned that before, how we've been sending people to more training. The training for detectives is important because it increases their skills, especially in investigations of domestic violence, child abuse, financial crimes, and of course, homicide. City cameras, again, I know that there's been a lot of budget items for cameras. They require ongoing maintenance and periodic updates to remain effective, and they're invaluable in our investigations. Law enforcement databases and investigative tools, those are all sources. So they definitely extend the effectiveness of the personnel working. Amazon Workspaces is very important as well. It's another budget item that gets overlooked. You know, everyone can do more work when they can pull up a computer at home and follow up on something really quick. So it's very important for remote work and accessing our field-based reporting and record management system. So those are things that have been very important in our investigations this year. We also have some additional needs that some of them are addressed in the new the budget proposal for this year. Our current interview recording system is outdated. I believe it's almost 10 years old. And it's starting to malfunction, which is, you know, it would be unfortunate for it to malfunction when we're interviewing a homicide suspect. So we really need to get it updated. For fiscal year 2023, we're requesting, it's about a $5,000 to $6,000 a year cost for 4 years to replace the system in one of our interview rooms with an Axon system. So it's related to our body-worn camera system. The evidence would be stored, the video would be stored in our evidence management platform. And we would like to see how it performs before we upgrade the other 2 interview rooms. And the systems don't get cheaper the more we do it once. So we want to try out one. The county police have about 19 interview rooms with this system in it right now. MIT is currently updating our cameras and servers. They've also requested an additional $250,000 to put fiber lines in areas where we currently have routers that we pay for monthly. So one goal of MIT's CIP for the cameras was to reduce our police department budget year over year. So that we've been paying for these routers every year. The fiber will replace those, and then we will not have to pay that yearly fee. Obviously, who knows when fiber needs upgrading. I'm not sure the life of fiber, but it's got to be less than paying a monthly fee for routers. We also, staffing shortages, like we've said, we really need adequate staffing to continue providing the great service that the investigators have provided to the city. Anything that we can do to make our entry-level police officer salary more competitive with surrounding agencies would be helpful, and also important are benefits to retain officers in their early years of the retirement. Early years with the department. So if they don't stay, then they're not going to get the experience they need to become good detectives if we're constantly getting new officers coming in and then leaving. So it's really important. And then also we're looking more at victim and witness services. So we had a meeting, I don't believe the chief mentioned it, but we had a meeting with the state's attorney last week. And I really want to get our investigators more used to providing services to victim and witnesses, hooking them up with some of the services that already exist, and then seeing if there's a greater need that we can fill either with other grants or state monies that are available for those things. I think that sometimes our help to witnesses has really made them more willing to come forward and provide information in some of the cases that we've had. You know, they don't want to take the chance of their family not being safe. So we've worked with people this year more than we have in the past to provide them with things they might need to be safer. I was going to touch a little bit on community outreach because, as I said, Lieutenant Krause now reports to me. The community outreach unit was under operations last year. It has now moved under Captain Kleindienst. Since I was in community outreach for a while as PIO, I'm familiar with their programs. So, you know, when I talked to Lieutenant Krause today, he said he could spend 2 hours talking about all the community outreach they do, but I'm going to breeze through because I know you guys have heard it before, but they were very busy this year. You know, we were able to get back to some of the things pre-COVID, community meetings and trunk or treats. There were a few this year as well. The welcome back to school, the scholarship program. There's so many programs that we have that really help the community. We've definitely increased our outreach for the unhoused. We've been working with Captain Kleindienst as well and the patrol officers. They were able to do summer camps this summer as well. Definitely, it's been hard during COVID, but we're starting to get back to normal. The youth programs that we have, all the things that we used to enjoy doing. They're doing character counts again in the elementary schools this year. Homework clubs, of course, are back open, so they've been visiting those as well. DARE has not been up and running yet because the county police are not doing the program. So hopefully when they resume, we'll be able to get back to that. Food pantries, of course, were really big during COVID as well. And we were very happy to help with those. We've started doing some coffee with the cops, and we did the cocoa with a cop during Midnight Madness this year with movies. That was very well attended. And also under community outreach is the crisis intervention team. So we have 25 officers and civilians in the department trained. It's a intensive training that they go through. They do a lot of outreach to people and help establish plans for people undergoing crisis. So, and our community resource centers as well in Robinwood and Harbor House. And I think that's it.
One thing, Captain Miguez, this is excellent as always. I know we have some partnerships and we have some events with the Annapolis Recreation and Parks Department. So when you get an opportunity, just add a slide or two in there about that. But as excellent outreach. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Right. So we're just about almost done. We have one more presenter. But before I get to Rhonda McCoy, just a couple quick points. Captain Miguez talked about meeting with the state's attorney in reference to victim witness relocation. Not only did we meet with the state's attorney, we met with the entire Annapolis delegation, Senator Alfred, Delegate Henson and Jones, and members of the governor's office to assist us with a plan going forward on how we can assist those members within our community and assist them so we can get better safety and better cooperation with the community. So that's going to be huge. She also talked about some of the technology that we use the chief, him and I talk all the time about what direction we're giving our patrol guys. That's important because what we don't want, well, what we do want is our officers being good ambassadors into the community. We don't want to see our patrol officers going out here chasing people off the corners. They will take enforcement. They have discretion as they see necessary, but we make no demands on them that they have to go out and lock people up on corners, that they have to stop a certain amount of cars. They don't have those type of metrics to go out every day. We just want them to be good ambassadors in the community. If there's a violation that has to be dealt with, they will deal with it. But we will use that technology that Captain McGee has talked about to target the most violent people in our community and the ones that serve in drugs to try to take them off the street without, kind of ticking off the entire community by over policing.
And go ahead.
All right. Go ahead, Chief.
No, I was just going to interject real quick. And when you had mentioned the meeting with Colt-Litus, I can't underscore enough how important that was. It was a pleasant surprise. As it stands now, real quickly, we have a lot of people who are reluctant to talk to police because they're fearful of their personal safety. And historically, the state of Maryland only committed about $300 grand, I think it is, for the entire state for witness relocation. Since we've been in Annapolis, I've always wanted the ability, and we've been doing it with Vanessa Bright through Anne Arundel County Reentry, to locate witnesses. For example, in some of the most recent high-profile cases, we had to get people out of the neighborhood because we didn't want anything to happen to them before they had a chance to fully help us with the investigation. So what the state's attorney has proposed to do, like Stan said, with the Annapolis delegation, with the two delegates and the senator, is to give us the ability through grant funding, number one, to increase it exponentially, the fund, number one. Number two, as it pertains to the city of Annapolis, us to have the ability to relocate people, even if the cases are not charged. The criteria historically was that the cases had to be charged and they were witnesses to the state before they could relocate them. But now we want to be able to relocate just on credible potential threats. And so if you understand what that means, that's huge, because if we can pull it off, it gives us the ability to put people in hotels and get them out until we've been able to sort it out without. We do it in a folksy way now. Thank God for Robert Horn and Vanessa Bright, because we couldn't afford to do it. We're not budgeted for it, line item. And that's been our challenge. So, myself or Deputy Branford or Captain Miguez could pick up the phone, and we have a relationship with Vanessa Bright, who has a grant for reentry, and she could use that funding for that, and she has been a blessing to us, but we want to formalize it more. So I just wanted to say that, Stan. That was a large part of the meeting, so that Shanika Henson and Dana Jones and Senator Alfred fully understands that we want to cooperate with and have a partnership with this county state's attorney to make sure that that funding is in place, and it would be managed by both, which creates a nice checks and balance. And Colt-Litus office would manage the fund cooperatively with us, and that way there's a nice, healthy checks and balances. I can't think of no better way than to have your auditor to be a prosecutor. No trouble will happen when your auditor is a prosecutor. So I just wanted to interject that, Stan. And explain that out a little more.
Yes, sir. Not a problem. So I just want to give some real quick numbers in reference to our positive impact program, which is also our reentry program. So since we started, we served 321 citizens of Annapolis. We had 98 criminal cases expunged. That's 98 individuals with cases need to be expunged that we assisted in so they can seek employment. We had 8 individuals voluntarily turn themselves in on warrants so that they could be a part of our programs. So that's people with warrants in the community, heard about the program, they turned themselves in, dealt with the warrants, and they entered to those programs. We graduated 4 classes from NCIA. We did 10 relocations of families have been relocated for residents for their safety. We had 8 individuals that we put into inpatient drug treatment, as resident treatment that they volunteer for, that Rob Horn was able to convince them to get into that program. We also got 2 individuals from the city of Annapolis into transitional housing. We successfully graduated over 45 individuals from the city of Annapolis, and we have over 20 individuals who gained full-time employment through our program. So I think that's a huge success, and I think that's community policing. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our administrative manager, Rhonda McCoy.
Good evening. I'm not as technical as Captain McGass, so I'm not going to share my screen. I'm going to have Julian do that. If he can, please listen. I'm going to have Julian do that. If he can, please listen. Okay, so everyone knows that we are in the throes of the police reform, and I'm hearing everyone knows that we are. Are you guys hearing that? Okay, so the police reform, and I'm hearing everyone knows that we are. Are you guys hearing that? Okay, so the police reform, and I'm hearing everyone knows that we are. Are you guys hearing that? Okay, so the police reform. Sounds like it. I'm hearing everyone knows that we are looping. Are you guys hearing that? Okay, so the sounds like it. I'm hearing
That's Rhonda's mixtape.
looping. Are you guys hearing that? Okay, so the sounds like it. I'm hearing
That's Rhonda's mixtape.
looping. Are you guys hearing that? Okay, so the sounds like it. I'm hearing
That's Rhonda's mixtape.
looping. Are you guys hearing that? Okay, so the sounds like it. I'm hearing
That's Rhonda's mixtape.
That sounds like it needs a budget request.
It does.
And Rhonda, are you watching on another device?
Like it needs a budget request.
No, it
Devices
does.
going that have audio? Rhonda, are you watching on another device?
Like it needs a budget request.
No, it
Devices
does.
going that have audio? Only
Rhonda,
person, are you watching on another device?
It needs a budget request.
There we go.
No, it
Devices
does.
going that have audio? That was good. Watching on another device?
It needs a budget request.
There we go. Devices going that have audio? That was good. Still watching on another device?
Hold on, let me leave and rejoin.
There we go. Devices going that have audio? That was good. Still watching on another device?
Hold on, let me leave and rejoin.
There we go. Devices going that have audio? That was good. Still watching on another device?
Hold on, let me leave and rejoin.
There we go. I don't know what. Still watching on another device?
Hold on, let me leave and rejoin.
There we go. I don't know what. Still watching on another device?
Hold on, let me leave and rejoin.
There we go. I don't know what. Still watching on another device?
Hold on, let me leave and rejoin.
There we go. I don't know what. Still watching on another device?
Hold on, let me leave and rejoin.
There we go.
Is it over? Is it over? No, I guess not.
There's an echo loop somewhere. I'm not sure what's going on.
Is
Stand
it
by.
over? No, I guess not.
There's an echo loop somewhere.
We're working on the audio issues, everyone. We're working on the audio issues, everyone. We're working on the audio issues, everyone.
Should we all sign out and sign back on?
We're working on the audio issues, everyone.
Should we all sign out and sign back on?
We're working on the audio issues, everyone.
Should we?
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 Working on the audio issues.
Should we?
Working on the audio
Should we?
Are we still in the mix? Are we still in the mix?
I believe we should be good now.
Okay, so most of you are now familiar with the Maryland Police Reform Act and our implementation, and that we have been working with the city as a whole in an implementation group to put forth reforms under the legislation. That there were 6 bills within that legislation, and a lot of things that we have to do. We're just going to go over a few things that we are doing right now. Other things that we have talked about in the past, such as search and seizure, and some other things we have already implemented and gone over with this group. And can you go to the next slide, please? So I just want to let everybody know we're not going to burn anybody. So that's supposed to be charging committee and not charring committee, and a trial board process. We've been working with AA County government to create that accountability board, the charge committee, and the trial boards that will serve AA County law enforcement agencies, the 5 agencies that are under AA County. We will all be working under one accountability board, and it will not be separate. In compliance with the House Bill 670, APD will create a front-facing portal where the public can make complaints online and file complaints after July 1st, 2023 through an online system. In speaking with that accountability board and that piece, there's a number of different things that happen or that have to happen with that board. Not just the accountability board, but our ability to have a citizen, if they want to make a complaint, they can go online now and make that complaint. Or after we upload our system, they will be able to follow their complaint through from the beginning through the end of their complaint. And all of this will happen, July 1st. One of the very, very important things that I want to emphasize here is that is for complaints that happen on or after July 1st, not for complaints before July 1st of 2020. And can you go to the next slide? So some of the things that we have been doing, and Amy and Dave talked about, the McGuizzes talked about some technology that we will be needing. One of the things that we'll be using is we already have a program with a company called IA Pro. We're looking to use this next gen public portal to accomplish what the state says that we have to have. State says that, a citizen must be able to log on online and track their complaint. They must be able to make a complaint online. And this will allow us to do that. But not without a cost. We have placed those costs within our budget, and along with, you know, some other items that we will need, a lot of things that we will need to make sure that we are compliant with that full bill. And this is one of them. And so, as you can see, this is just a promo from the company. Complaints are going to be kept up to date and investigated, and you'll notify. People will be notified of the outcomes. One of the things that we like about this particular program, as opposed to some other programs that we have, number one, we already have a contract with them. Number two is that each time anything is entered into the system, we don't have to physically go back and notify the complainant. The system will do it. It will send them either a text or an email that they can set up through that system, and it will automatically tell them what's going on with that case. And, you know, we're looking to finalize contracts. We still have not signed a contract yet. We have some meetings next week with the company, and we want to go over some of the things that we do like about the system. But this is one of the things, or one of these technology things that we really, really need as a department. There, as we said last year, the things in our budgets are not wants. They are all needs. The things that we want, we try to seek grants for, and we try to, you know, to ask you for, but the things that we've actually placed in our budget this year are definitely items that we truly, truly need. Another thing that we'll be doing within the next couple of weeks is our body-worn camera program. We are updating our body-worn camera policy. So in compliance with the law, we were buffering for 30 seconds. We'll be buffering now, and that buffering means that, you know, before an incident happens, there, you know, someone pushes the button, there's a buffer period that happens. We now buffer for 30 seconds, but in compliance with the law, we'll be buffering for 60 seconds. We'll move to that video buffering on or about March 1st. We'll update our body-worn camera policy to roll out, and then we will begin video buffering for the 60 seconds. Another thing that we want to roll out in around on or about 1 April is sanctity of life clauses. The state has said that each officer has to sign a sanctity of life pledge. We have gone and researched, looked at, you know, some other departments that have them, looked at some state agencies that have them. The chief has looked at, you know, some of the different pledges, and we've selected one that we really like. We'll be rolling that out through our Power DMS system. Instead of kind of like having a traditional signature, we want to be able to comply and prove to the state that every officer did have it and they did sign it. So we'll be posting that up through the Power DMS system. Officers will sign. If the state comes through and wants to audit us, they will see that we do have that pledge. And that's one of the things that we are doing ahead of July 1st. Body-worn camera buffering is also July 1st. We're trying to look at all the things that we can get done relatively easily. Most of these things where people would say, hey, can you, do this or that? They do require policy changes. And so, we want to research and look, and we never want to just put out policy just to be putting it out. We want to be thoughtful. We want to share our draft policies, in and around to the officers, so they can read and immerse themselves in it prior to the policy coming out, and then move to an approval stage where amongst command, and then we'll put the policy out, and always with a legal review.
Hey, Rhonda, let me interject for 1 minute with the buffering thing. Can you explain that a little more? I think the Baltimore City is a great analogy, what that means when it buffers from 60 seconds to 30 seconds.
So normally when you get those body worn cameras and you see that, there's a, someone will play it and you'll find that, there's a buffering period where, officers, maybe talking or, in the car and then, before they get the, the call or they press the, it's kind of like a small period and it's usually 30 seconds. And then you'll start hearing their voices and, and getting into the call when, before they press the button. That used to be 30 seconds around the board. And so now the state legislature has said that that has to be 60 seconds. So we will move before July 1st when we're mandated to, on or about March 1st, we will move to the 60 seconds of buffering rather than the 30 seconds.
And because of that buffering, it caught the officers planting drugs when they said that they found the drugs one place. Because it buffered in advance before they turned the cameras on, the officers wasn't aware that it was recording them before they activated it. Does that sound right, Rhonda?
Yes.
And so what it does, it caught the officers being untruthful. This is in Baltimore City. And so what the administrative manager explained was the ability to increase that time. So now it even records longer before they officially activate the camera. I just thought that was important, Rhonda, to kind of explain what the buffering meant. Thank you.
And so those are the things that we are working on this quarter. Of course, there are a myriad of other things that that we are working on. One of the mandates is that each officer in the agency have a mental health assessment. And we're happy to say that here in Annapolis, we have been working with HR and with our implementation to the Office of Law and Risk Management. And we have identified a vendor. That's a big, huge thing because when we first started this back in the summer, there weren't too many vendors that wanted to touch it, that wanted to touch it because the science kind of doesn't exist for it. But we have identified a vendor and we're way ahead of the curve from other departments. We did receive some calls from other departments asking like, hey, has anybody done anything or, what have you guys been doing? And we've been working very, very, very diligently. We think that, and you'll be seeing contracts come up for that relatively shortly. We have some rules and things to write around it in the city. But again, Annapolis outpaces other jurisdictions and we're ahead of the curve. And if anyone has any questions, I'll entertain them.
We're saving questions for the end, Ms. McCoy.
All right, so that's the end of our presentation. Chief, Chief, you have the last word before we get into any questions. So it's on you.
Thank you, Ms. McCoy.
Okay, yes, thank you. As you can see, what a superb job that the team has done, the command staff has done. I'll say this publicly, as I know this is streamed. I want to thank you, Deputy Chief Branford. I appreciate you, brother. You really bring a lot to the Annapolis PD, and I think that when the story is finally told, the transformation that's going to occur will put us light years ahead of a lot of other jurisdictions. I think Annapolitan should be very proud of the police department that they have. Thank you, Amy, for accepting the challenge. It's a huge challenge and she accepted it very gracefully. Thank you, Dave, for your support. I know that you have young family at home, and her job is very demanding, and I know that she couldn't do it without your support. So I want to thank you both, and happy 28th anniversary of how did I say it earlier today? It's the 28th anniversary of his 28th birthday. So happy birthday. Rhonda, thank you. Rhonda is so smart that it's incredible. She's so intelligent, and she's so adept at, just being able to read anything. And so we're better off, Rhonda, for having you to be a part of the team. Thank you. It's like our old Inspector General days ahead. And then my man right here, Justin Kleindes, we're both the talkers in the group. So we cancel each other out. We can share stories all day long, and we're both comfortable. Nobody's looking up at the ceiling saying, when is this over with? And I share that with you, Alderwoman. You know, we can have a good time and talking about it. And so I want to thank you. Thank you for your leadership, Justin. And is Carrie still here? I just want to give a thanks to Carrie Berger too. Thank you so much, Carrie. We really appreciate you. She's been wonderful through this for so many things, and always like a good lawyer gives wise counsel. It kept us out of a lot of trouble, and she's helped me get through some tough times. You know, I don't hide the fact that I really struggled with the loss of Brian Della, and a whole lot of what I do, I still do it in his memory. I became close to him, and I'm still, struggling, and I'm not ashamed to admit that I miss my friend, who was a very strong lieutenant. And so I thank you, Carrie, for your leadership and your wise counsel, and all the women, Pendel Charles. What can I say? Just thank you. We have one of the greatest public safety chairs that you could have. She's a combination of holding us accountable. She's a wonderful advocate for the city of Annapolis, and she makes sure that her constituents and the entire city gets what they need to make sure that we have the best public safety. So I'll stop there. I just wanted to take this opportunity, because rarely we get to do that. Thank this team for everything that they've put together, and I'm just hoping, it's my prayer, it's my sincere prayer that every alder person in all 8 wards will be proud of the service that we render. I hope that Alderwoman Carmen O'Neill and Alderwoman Sheila Finlayson, I have to thank you too for all your support. Like Stan said at the beginning, it was out of a conversation we had with Alderwoman Finlayson that precipitated us doing these presentations to the community. And I can call on people like Alderwoman Pendel Charles. I mean, I can call her 3 o'clock in the morning, and she'll talk to me, not as a police chief, but as a friend. And so I just want to thank each and every one of you. So I hope this was helpful. This is our vision as we move forward in 2022. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief. This has been an exceptional presentation. Fire had an exceptional presentation. Police, awesome as always. We'll start with the questions with Alderman Gay.
Thanks to everyone for the presentation. This was very insightful. My first question is related to some things that I thought have been a little redundant as it related to some of the conversations we've had in the last year. The first being the PIO programs and communications with the community in general on both things inside and outside of the police department. Could you expand on that plan a little more? And give us a timeline of maybe when that person would be in and how their presence would benefit the community and the department.
Yeah, Alderman Gay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean not to acknowledge you. I didn't see your face. I'm looking at my Brady Bunch grid here, and you didn't reach out and look down.
No, it's totally cool. No problem.
I apologize, I didn't see you on the grid. But yeah, I'm the first to admit I've been a little picky about who I choose as a public information officer, because I want to make sure that you only get one chance to do it. And I want to make sure it's the right person. I'm looking at a person who's a native of Annapolis and who understands the city well. I want to, we have to start turning this ship around. You know, this department belongs to the citizens of Annapolis. And I'm not ashamed to say that at some point, I want part of my legacy to be that during my tenure, I try to do my very best to turn it over to native Annapolitans. It goes back to what Alderwoman Pendell Charles said in terms of our recruitment in each ward to try to bring people here that are from Annapolis. So to answer your question, the PIO does more than just talk about a murder that occurred or a shooting or carjacking or robbery. PIO is very important in promoting the department, not promoting me, but promoting the department. But they have to understand the vision of the department and be able to forge the kind of relationships with the media that needs to be forged. And so that's one of those positions that you really want to make sure. And I've personally interviewed them. I've had my staff to interview them. And then the next process that I personally met with a few candidates just last week to make sure it's a right fit. I want the person to be articulate, but folksy. I want them to come across that they care. And I want them to have a good command of the English language. They don't have to, we can train them in police culture. Stan always talks about the position to be a civilian, but I want them to work along with our sworn members too. You know, I shared today that I like the public to see the good work that Captain Miguez is doing, or Captain Klein is, or they don't always have to see me on TV or read about me in the Capitol. As long as we all create this synergy that allows us to get the message across, no matter who's delivering it. So my PIO would be that type of person that could bring the right people together, that could inform you all, that understands the law, that can work with everybody, can work with Office of Law, that can work with the mayor's office spokesperson. And so I just don't want to hire somebody because they need a job. This is very sensitive, and I owe it to the citizens of Annapolis to pick the right person, and I will soon. So that's what that is. I'm the one that's picky. They gave me several candidates, you know.
Okay, yeah, and that's no problem. I definitely think, as you mentioned, if they're communicating to the general public, should be the right person. Just to expand on that really quickly, that is also one of the concerns I think we've all had for the last year and probably for a little longer than that. You know, you say that the PIO's office is much bigger than responding to, you know, robberies, burglaries, etc. But it has, and this is to no disrespect to anybody on this line or any of the current staff that we have at all, there have been delays in the information that we've received, we not being the aldermen and women, but the general public. So, for example, even with the most recent incident, the letter and information that was sent to the ECA was almost copy and paste to the incident that happened in December. And it was basically saying, yes, we know this incident happened. The police department is looking into it. You know, we'll try to do the best we can. What else can be, you know, stated? I know we've talked about, even when you first got here, expanding up, you know, media, creating short videos, links, you know, even digital, I don't want to say ads, but like, you know, posts just explaining detail into certain situations. What can we do to put the best word forward out to our constituency as it relates to some of these incidents outside of just the standard, like, yes, a shooting happened, we are investigating, and so we're not going to respond because we think that we shouldn't respond?
Yeah, that would be the part of the job of the PIO. Everybody who I'm interviewing, Alderman Gay, first of all, these are the things that I demand, and I'll take privilege as the chief of police. I want to train journalists, and everybody that I've interviewed so far has a journalism degree, you know, a Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science degree in journalism and have had experience, because again, the trained PIO can do those things that won't get us in trouble legally. A PIO could consult with Kerry Berger and we talk about incidents that's happened and find a way to be transparent. The only reason why we don't share everything out there, because sometimes our hands are literally restricted legally, or we don't want to try the case. We don't want to make people fact witnesses unnecessarily or force them to the grand jury. So when we make this information esoteric, it's not because we have this taking this elitist posture. It's really not. I think everybody has the right to know as much as they can about the Annapolis PD, because it's not my department, it's your department. But we have to be mindful of the fact that there's legal considerations. I mean, the state's attorney will pick up the phone sometime and say, please, chief, don't talk about this. I'm not telling you what to do, but if you want us to prosecute this case successfully, then stay away from A, B, C, and D. So I take the advice from a lot of people. It would be foolish not to, especially the attorneys. And so I try to operate like that. But what a professionally trained PIO could do for us, like in many jurisdictions, is they know the limitations. They know MPIA, they know FOIA, they know all those federal and state mandates as it relates to transparency and giving information out to the media. I like to talk, and you know me, I tell you everything, including you know how I am. I get on the TV and tell the criminals turn themselves in and meet me on you know, on Spar Road, at Spar and Hilltop at the farm store. That's just the kind of guy I am. Turn yourself in, you know, but a lot of times that's not appropriate. You know, sometimes you have to be more deliberate, and that's all we're trying to do. We're trying to have a good professional PIO program we can be proud of. Remember, we were woefully understaffed. We've had challenges with our budget due to the pandemic. And so we didn't have the ability to hire a lot of people. We had to freeze positions. And so a lot of the PIO stuff I've been doing myself. And there are times that's appropriate, and I'm sure Kerry would agree that that the media wants to hear from me. The public wants to hear from the chief. They don't want to hear from Rhonda or Stan. They want to hear from the chief, especially those things that can be potentially explosive. They want the assurance from the chief in any jurisdiction, not just Annapolis, that you know, they have a leader that they can hold accountable and a point of contact. So those are kind of things we're working out. But I promise you, in short order, we'll be announcing a professionally trained PIO. And I didn't realize that they're not as expensive as I shouldn't say that, as I thought they were, but we can manage an entry level or trained PIO and pay them a government wage. I just thought a professional one would be way out of our ability to pay them, but that's not true.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think, you know, just having the expertise is critical, but that's just definitely something that we need and the community has asked for quite some time. So my next question actually ties into that, though, as it relates to responses to homicides and the homicides investigations in general. I noted in this meeting and in two of the December meetings that we had, both at the Office of Emergency Management's Command Center, it's often said that, you know, community, we need the community to, you know, give input and voice and et cetera. And so I guess my question is, what does that look like? You know, I've been involved in a number of instances where people have brought forth to me information that I thought could be helpful. I've passed it on. I know, or it seems weird because I feel like whenever there's an incident, the community knows. They generally talk about it very loudly, whether it be in person or on social media. And so within a day or two, even if they are not identified by law, suspects are identified within the community by word of mouth. How does that translate to the department? Is somebody, I don't know. I mean, how is someone being proactive as it relates to those incidences, or what's the case there? I know also whoever was speaking on the homicides, I believe it was Deputy Chief Bradford, stated that there will be requests for additional supplies that could help with the homicides. And so I'd ask for a little bit of elaboration on that as well.
Yes, Dan, you can respond to that.
Yes, I think that's a fair assessment in reference to what you talked about earlier. As it pertains to homicide, my hopes would be that we get information that would help us prevent someone getting shot or getting killed before these things happen. Obviously, when people give information, I've been doing this for a long time. They'll, for instance, someone will call in and says, John Green did the shooting. Well, that put us in the right neighborhood, and we now know that John Green did that particular shooting, but we may not have the evidence to put John Green in front of a court commissioner or in front of a judge. Sometimes people think that when they tell us this information, it's enough for the police to go out and get warrants, and it's not. We need people, and I know it's difficult, brave enough if they see something to come forth and cooperate, which is the reason why we met with the state's attorney and the state delegation, because we know it's a challenge for people to come forward and feel safe enough that their information is not going to get out and that they're not going to be targeted once they get that information. So it's a balance. But we certainly want people to give us that information. I will, and I'm sure Captain Miguez and Captain Klein will make sure that that information is treated and given the weight that it deserves without putting someone in harm. But oftentimes when people give us information, it's in combination with a few things. That one piece of information alone may not do it, but certainly, we'll try to keep that under wraps. As it pertains to additional resources, or can you kind of clarify that? I don't know what you were saying in reference to that.
Yeah, and I'll also clarify my first question too, because I don't believe that was answered. Because I feel like this has been the same thing with the last couple of high-profile incidences, at least as it relates to Annapolis, is that like there seems to be this, the department wants the community to respond with information, but the department also does not put out information to assist the community in responding. For example, and I don't know if I can say this or not, but at the meeting that we had at the last event, there was a vehicle that had been involved in a number of incidences. And I'm thinking, okay, so why don't we, say, hey, if you see this vehicle, or if you have any information about this vehicle, that's been involved in 4 shootings or 4, drug, whatever transactions, let us know. And the response from, I'm not sure, one of the detectives at the police department was that, oh, well, we don't want to tip off the criminals. Well, obviously, but we also want to give the general public something to work with. So how can we help one another?
Well, it's a cookie cutter approach, Alderman. For example, if you see somebody hold up a liquor store and the witnesses says there's a getaway car and they give us the Maryland tag, we have no problem with putting that out. Wanted for the robbery that occurred at Spar and Hilltop is a 1999 Mazda, Maryland registration, Adam Boy Charles, 123, and we have no problem putting that information out, in a general sense. What we don't like to put out, only thing that we don't like to put out, we can put out general descriptions because witnesses know when they saw something. So we often appeal to the public that if you know something, then give us a call. We don't have to discuss specifics because if I was there when a homicide occurred or the shooting or the robbery and I have intimate knowledge, I know I did that. We just appealing to you to do that. But you're right, the general stuff that's happened that we have on body CCTV or some other form of media, something that we memorialize through electronic stuff or a good witness. We don't have to get the name of the witness. Last seen an African-American male or a white male, whatever the case may be, running with a clothing description, general stuff. What I don't think it's appropriate to get into, and Carrie could chime in if she thinks that I'm correct, is we don't want to talk about the evidence. That's where it gets sticky when we talk about evidence seized and specific stuff, because that does tip off to a criminal. And so what my frustration is, the times that we're living in, a lot of times, if the police chief is not careful, his information can be a force multiplier. We can create crime because we can embolden the criminal or excite the criminal into committing other crimes if we're not very selective. So what I don't want to be a part of is unwittingly causing more crime based on the information that I give out.
Would you agree that a criminal could be equally dangerous, or at any case, probably even more dangerous if he or she committed an act of violence in front of a group of people and the community is now speaking of it and it's on social media, etc. That type of action could also embolden someone to just be like, screw it, the whole community knows I've shot this person, so let me just continue to create more crime. So would you agree that could be a case too, and that potentially it could be helpful that the public knows exactly what's going on within legal rights, so that they can.
Well, and I think, Alderman Gay, that both things can be true, right? So I don't think it's a this or that. I think in certain circumstances, all those things could be true at once. Certainly, if there's information that would lead us to a suspect, one of the things that investigators will want is some time to follow up on that information and hopefully to catch the perpetrator with the goods in the car, with the gun. If the suspect knows right away that someone got a hold of the tag and the description and the name, the first thing they're gonna do is get rid of those things. We like to catch them with it. So I think it's a case-by-case situation, and you gotta balance those things with public safety. If it is a public safety issue, certainly we wouldn't hold on that where we think people are gonna get hurt. But if it's a situation where we can kind of hold on and try to get the best evidence possible by pursuing the leads that we have, that's something we would do also. So I don't think it's one or the other. I think it can be true depending on the situation in both scenarios.
Yes, and I agree with you too. I just wanted to interject that. I agree with you, but I think that my deputy chief said it eloquently. It's a balance. You have to balance that against public safety. So I don't think it's a cookie cutter approach. I think we have to weigh it on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Alderman Gay, I just want to let the group know we're at 5:57 p.m. It is my understanding that we have a hard stop at 6 p.m., but we also have 2 pieces of legislation on our agenda today. I'm going to ask Ms. Green. Ms. Green, is it possible for us to continue this public safety standing committee for an hour sometime next week?
I can check with the TV crew and, get a date for you.
Okay. Can you get it now, or did you want to?
No, I'll have to get back to you because I have to check all the calendars.
Okay. I'm just going to indicate that we'll look at some times and some dates. Ms. Green, just make a note next Thursday, and next Wednesday would be good for 1 hour. And what we can do is we can continue with Alderman Gay. Alderman Gay, we're going to hold you next time probably to maybe 10 more minutes, and then we'll give Alderwoman O'Neill an opportunity, Alderwoman Finlayson, Alderwoman Tierney, and Alderman Arnett next week. And we're going to try to get that legislation in. We're going to try to do all that in 1 hour. If you all think we need an hour and a half, do you think we need an hour and a half again next week?
And Alderwoman Pendle Charles, I want to thank Alderwoman Tierney too for your lovely expression, wishing us the Annapolis PD a nice holiday, and the expression that you sent to us. So it was very enjoyable. So thank you, ma'am.
Ms. Green, maybe we ought to schedule for another hour and a half next week to get in everyone's questions, and also to tackle these 2 pieces of legislation. So Wednesday and Thursday. Yes, sir.
Is this our regularly scheduled city public safety meeting of the public safety, correct?
Yes, it is.
Can I ask why they would restrict us to 2 hours, knowing that we had a presentation that would have taken at least an hour and followed by questions on very, very important topics of public safety?
If you will recall, we did 2 hours for the fire department last week, and that worked out tremendously well. We stopped in less 1 minute at 5:59. This time, unlike last week, didn't know last week that this week we would have 2 pieces of legislation. So I couldn't change the time frame. It was too late to change the time frame.
Okay.
So that's the answer to your question. So we can take another hour and a half next week. Ms. Green, take a look, please, at Wednesday and Thursday of next week and see what you come up with. It might end up possibly being the middle of the day.
We can
go
do
ahead.
it on
I'm sorry.
Wednesday. If we start at 3:30, we can go 3:30 to 5:30 on Wednesday.
Okay, Wednesday, the 16th, from what time again?
3:30 to
From 3:30 to
5:30.
3:30 to 5:30?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Alderman Gay, does that work for you? Next Wednesday, the 16th of February. Alderwoman O'Neill, does that work for you? Yes, I see a head nod. Alderwoman Finlayson, does that work for you?
Yes, but there is an Economic Matters meeting at 6:30, just so you'll know, for anyone that's on both committees, it's going to be back to back.
Okay, that gives them an hour. Thank you. Alderwoman Tierney, does that work for you?
Yes, and could I ask that Mr. Hopkins gets an invite to that as well? Taryn Hopkins with the National Fire Association, the same invitation.
Okay.
Thanks.
Fine. Alderman Arnett, does that work for you?
Unfortunately not, but I'll try to reschedule something.
Can you come in any part of that? We could bump somebody to accommodate you.
No, I'll try to rework my schedule. Both pieces of legislation are important.
Okay. Alderman Gay? Alderman Gay, does that work for you? Is he still on? Okay, I'm gonna assume it does. All right, it's 6:02. Everyone, this will be continued. So do I call for an adjournment, Ms. Green, or this is just a continuation?
No, you can adjourn this meeting and then we'll pick up with.
Okay, at this time, I entertain a motion to adjourn at 6:02 p.m.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Aye. I hear no nays. Thank you all so very, very much, and I'll see you all next Wednesday, 3:30, same time, same place. Sorry. Enjoy the rest of your week.